Since we have a minute here, I hate dead time. I've spent the last 3 weeks doing fifth grade. So if I jump on go hoo hoo, dance, dance. Sorry, it's just kind of goes with the territory. I'll try to be calm. That's why I have the lake in the background. So I've got the kiddos on Zoom 6 hours a day, and here I am on Zoom. Hooray! You know, life's good. I see Betsy going, yeah. Anyway, I'll cut out the background on that. I just thought I'd do that in lieu of introduction. So nice to be here. Thank you.
For anyone who this is their first session, we have some practice documents available for download. I'm going to drop a link in the chat so you can download those practice documents.
Is that the same one with volume 1 or with the first video?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I downloaded those. I just didn't really go through the rest of them yet.
Okay, no worries. We kind of jump around quite a bit. My goal here is to just sort of, I guess, I kind of go with which one do I want to work on right now? So if you go to that link, you're going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and the very last link on the page will be the link to download the files. So under cccaccessibility.org/resources/presentations, we're going to scroll all the way to the very bottom, and we have MS Word practice documents here. It may prompt you to unzip the files. First, I'm going to download them. I'm using Google Chrome. I have a little download button in the top right corner that I'm going to select, which will then have them begin downloading in the tray. From here, I can right-click the folder and do extract all, and that will open up our documents. Okay. Well, it's been a few minutes. I think we have enough to move forward here. A lot of what we're doing today is going to be review and then some hands-on practice. I also was asked to prepare some information on creating accessible flyers. So I do have some time reserved at the end to sort of just talk about that. My goal is to use Microsoft Word and convert to PDF. And I'm hopefully going to show you some techniques to maintain the accessibility principles when converting over. So Stephen, I'm not sure what you mean by that. Flex info.
Who are taking, for those who are doing Flex, we need some kind of a identification, check-in, could even be a screenshot. I don't know. In fact,
Yes.
I'll do that.
Stephen, I'm taking attendance, so I will put you in the system as
Thank
having
you.
attended. Sure.
Perfect. Okay, so awesome. Well, nice to see everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Sean Jordison. I am from the CCC Accessibility Center. And this is part 3 of our 3-part Microsoft Word accessibility training. The goal of today, we're going to review some of our principles that we had talked about for Microsoft Word, and just a snippet on PDF accessibility and those flyers. So without further ado, I'm going to jump in. You guys are welcome to follow along with me. At the end of my demo, you will be prompted to apply the list principles to one of our Word documents, and we'll take it from there. As always, please interrupt me if you have questions. I prefer to answer them on the fly, or you can throw them in the chat and I will get to them as soon as there's a pause in where we're at. So first things first, I am going to open up this document. This is somewhat of a newer document, but this document has a lot of history for me personally. Just a really quick background story. There used to be a place called the High Tech Training Center unit for where accessibility specialists would go to learn. And this document has kind of survived many different restructuring and grants and money in hands. And I remember when I was first learning how to do a lot of this stuff back in like 2009, we used this document. So it has history in some way. You're welcome to follow along with me. I just ask that you let me kind of go through the demo piece. And if you have questions, we'll address them as they come up. Basically, what I'm going to do is walk through our list accessibility principles. The list elements stand for links. We're going to look at images, our structure, which includes headings and list elements, and finally tables. And this document has all of those things. So depending on who you talk to, you might find people do things in different orders. I'm going to show you the way that I personally remediate documents or that I work through documents with faculty. I like the top-down approach. Perhaps that's my knowledge of the area, but you can approach this in many ways. I've had some people go and apply headings to the whole document, or fix all the links, or add alt text to all the images, and then kind of do the other piece. I like to start at the top and work my way down. So that's what I'm going to do here. First things first, we need to apply a heading. So I'm going to pull up my navigation menu by pressing Control F or Command F on Mac to bring up this navigation window. On this, when you first push that, it's probably going to take you to the search bar. You'll want to select the little headings tab button underneath the navigation window. And this basically shows me that I have no headings in my document. This is just a quick verification of that. So what I'm going to do is start applying some headings. And as I do that, we're going to build a little outline on the left-hand side. So Geology 2.3 volcanoes, I'm going to make this a heading 1. Types of lava and magma. Does anyone want to take a guess at what heading level this will be? Stephen nailed it. Or in the chat, you're welcome to put something in there. Or I'm just going to give you the answer. That's okay. Heading 2. Pillow lava. This is a type of lava or magma. So it's in reference to our heading level 2, not a new topic. This will be a heading level 3. Now, this double line, I think, was a pre-formatted property because I did not specifically apply that. We're going to go ahead and leave it for now. We might remove it later. We'll see how we're feeling. Okay, now I have an image. So we want to verify that this image has alternate text. To do that, there's a couple different ways we can do it. I'm using MS Word Online desktop version. If you are using a different version than that, this step might change a little bit for you. So I'll show you both ways. First, we can right-click the image and select Edit Alt Text. That's one option to bring up our alt text menu. Or we can go to Picture Format and select Alt Text. Now the picture format button will only be there after you select the image. So if I'm down here in this paragraph, the alt text button is missing. Excuse me, the picture format button is missing. So if I click the image, it brings up like a hidden menu item that's only activated when we have this selected. Now on the right-hand side, this is where we want to add our alternate text. And I'm not going to do anything fancy for this demonstration. I highly encourage you to be descriptive and concise in your alternate text. And if you have additional description, to wrap your images in that text. For this example, I'm simply going to write pillow lava. And we will move on. Next, we have paragraph text. I feel like it needs a space. This isn't an accessibility thing. This is just a visual thing for me personally. I'm going to do a return there to give us a little space. Now we have our first hyperlink. So for this example, we are removing the hyperlink. We are pretending that this will not be printed. This is an online only document. So to do that, there's a couple different ways we can get this link out of here. The first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to select the hyperlink, and I'm going to select Control-C or Command-C if you're on Mac to copy it to my clipboard. So currently, this link is copied to my clipboard. Now we need to figure out, where do we want to put it? Well, I'm going to drop it on the words pillow lava. So to do that, I'm going to select the words pillow lava with my mouse. There's also a way you can do it with your keyboard. We're going to right click the highlighted text, select link, and then in the address section, I'm going to right click paste, or Control-V or Command-V if you're on Mac. Just a couple things to verify here. We have our text to display. This is clear, concise. It avoids vague language like click here and more info. And we have a live hyperlink. I always suggest that you click through your links just to make sure that nothing's broken in there. And then we're going to select OK. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete this extra text out and my hyperlink. There's one exception to accessibility hyperlink rules. That is, if you know for a fact your document will be printed. If you know that your document will be printed, it is okay to have the full URL. What we ask, or what we at the Tech Center advise for a best practice, is to remove the hyperlink so that it is simply live text. If I was using a screen reader, we don't want to have the full URL there. Because I know this will not be printed, or I'm making that statement, I'm going to simply delete it. And we are going to move on. The rest of this, it's funny, I've been doing this so long, I don't even look at the content. Like, this could be talking about anything as far as I'm concerned. So this body text, there's not much to look for. There might be bulleted list items or something like that, but over time, you'll kind of just see where the errors are, and you can address them. For example, when there is a line break, typically that means there's a new section, in which case we need to apply a heading level. So we have Pahoehoe lava, and I believe that is a part of types of lava and magma. It's not quite a new subtopic, so this will be a heading level 3. So currently our heading level 2 is types of lava and magma. And then we have 2 subtopics underneath that heading level 2 at heading level 3 for pillow lava and Pahoehoe. Now we have some more text here. I'm going to do a return just because I want to. You do not have to do that. Now we have lava. What do we suspect this heading level will be? In the chat, what is your guess for what heading level this will be? Perfect. Yep, you guys nailed it. Heading level 3. And now we have another image. So one thing I like about Word, what it's done in this online version, is our windows stay open. So our alt text window is still available. When I select the image, it will become active. Now here we have, it's kind of hard to see on my screen, I'm sure. We have AA_90. This isn't a great alt text. In fact, this document is kind of poor on the alt text in general. So let's make it a little more fun. I'm actually going to take some of the content out of here. Let's see. And there's a car alarm going off in my background if you can't hear it. So I'm just going to take this sentence description here and throw it in my alternate text. Now there's
instructors there, like what are student perceptions of online learning and how might we be able to use that information to shape it?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question? What is?
I'd also like to know how many of them actually can afford to do this kind of work, online learning. What resources do they have? How do they get their resources? What's the most common?
I'm not sure if that was directed for me or not. I'm happy to ask. I love those discussions. If that wasn't meant for everyone, then maybe I should be quiet. If you'd like for me to address, I'm happy to. Here's what I would recommend. Reach out to Betsy and ask what resources are available. It's tricky, right? I'm a realist. I know that this does take work. Here's what we say for accessibility. Start today in any new documents you create, okay? And over time, think about these accessibility principles and try to apply them as you go. Technically, this is a legal requirement, so it should have been done originally when the content was online. And if there was ever any type of litigation or lawsuit, that's sort of what the rule is. So anything online should already have these principles, but that's just not the reality, right? There's a lot of work to be done for a lot of people, especially if you're in a I'm thinking like STEM-based courses or nursing courses. They're intense, you know, but there's a lot of resources out there to learn how to do things. And you might be surprised at what campus resources are available to you. I encourage you to reach out to Betsy specifically for any of your on-campus resources. But I'm happy to have that talk as well. Okay, for Pillow Lava image, should we move the attribution to an image title, image caption? You can. The screen readers sort of do various things with the image caption. I've seen it work and not work depending on the screen reader. I would say it's a safe bet, though interesting enough, we still have to have the alt text requirement because it will still flag as a fail in if we were taking it to PDF or keeping it in Word. The image caption seems to be like a further proof, which is, I agree with you. It's basically alt text. Another thing you could do, if you do an image caption, I believe you can mark the image as decorative. We'd have to do a little bit of testing with the screen reader. But yeah, I encourage you to test it out. I'm always curious as to the specific things. You know, there's a million different ways to do this stuff. And what I was going to say is because we have such a good description underneath the image, this would probably be a good candidate to mark as decorative, to be perfectly honest. But for sake of demo and being here, we're going to throw it in there. And Stephen, if you'd like, go ahead and try the caption, because the goal after we make this accessible, we're going to take it to PDF and we can see maybe if it creates a weird error or not. Okay, next up, we have a link. So I'm going to do my trick where I highlight the text and I'm going to Control X this time, or Command X to cut. And let's see, there's a little junk in here I'm going to delete out. And because the other link, we were able to put it on the actual words of what image description we were looking at, I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to select lava and right click. Because I've already cut my link, I cut it out. It's in my clipboard. It's chilling right now. We're going to paste it in our address. Control V. And then select OK. So what we did there was simply take the full URL, we cut it, and we put it on a more descriptive text item. Okay. Let's see. So next up, this kind of looks like it could be a header. So we have table of lava types. Is this a heading level 3 or a heading level 2? This isn't a trick question. I'm just trying to decide. We are the authors, so we can sort of define it. It's more important that we apply something. Let's see. Table of lava types. I think I'm going to go heading level 2. And if I change my mind, then I'll change my mind later on. Okay. Let's see. So now we have a table. This is sort of the T in our list principles for accessibility. Does anyone remember what is required for a table accessibility? In the chat, throw in what you think I should do to this table to make it accessible. Yep, you nailed it, Betsy. Anyone remember heading on a new page? I think I know where you're going with that. I'm going to address that specific piece. But yeah, but it's pretty much it. One final thing, I'm not sure I mentioned it before. You want to avoid tables that are for layout purposes only. Now, this is always a subject of discussion. Everyone has a different opinion. I like to think I'm here to give you best practices. And best practice is to avoid layout tables. They just cause issues. You're going to get flags across the board in whatever final format you're in. If you want stuff on the left and you want stuff on the right, there are more efficient ways to do that than a table. Table is just simple for that. But for accessibility, it can cause a lot of issues with our screen readers. With that said, let's make this table accessible. So I'm going to select the little crosshair in the top left corner of my table. Let me zoom in a little bit here. And when I do that, I get two new menu items at the very top. We have table design and layout. Let's first select table design. On the far left corner, we have a few different options here. We have header row, first column, total, last column, banded rows, and banded columns. What we want to select is header row and first column. I don't know why, but I feel like Stephen may know. Stephen, do you know what banded rows is? I think I've talked about this in other things. I don't quite know what it does. As far as I know, it doesn't affect the accessibility. I could be wrong, but what we really want for this particular table is we want a header row that's lava type and description. And I suppose if we wanted, we could do first column, but because we have such little data, it's not going to make or break us. I'm actually just going to do header row. So I'm simply going to select header row. Now, I like to apply a visual style to my tables. I don't know why, I just do. And so we're going to do that. Additionally, it seems to eliminate occasional errors. So when we look at the accessibility checker in a little while, sometimes applying a style will get rid of that annoying error. So I'm just going to take a simple one here. Let's take this orange. And what it does is it kind of makes our headers more prominent. Banded means green bar. Maybe it's putting in like
alternating lines of shaded, like green bar paper from the 70s.
I got you. Okay. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Interesting. I bet it also depends on the style that we choose. Oh, yep, there it is. I can see it now if we had a more intense style. Let's keep it simple. So when I apply a style, here's what happens. If you notice, our header row actually pops. So let me remove the style. So currently this technically works. We have header row selected, no issues. But when I apply that style, boom, we get a little more emphasis on our table header. This is just a visual cue that we've made it more accessible. Now on the layout tab, there's usually an option for repeat header rows. This typically applies to tables that are more than one page. I've seen some crazy tables out there. I've seen tables that shouldn't exist. They go multiple horizontal pages. You know, that's not fun. Or several, I've seen 20-page documents with tables, usually for audits or, you know, district reporting, things like that. That's where this section really comes into play. And then finally, we want to add a table summary. Now, table summaries are a hot topic in the accessibility world in the sense of some people think they're useless. Some people think they're valid. I like to just put something in there. If they're useless, it's never activated. However, what it does do is it avoids certain errors when we go to PDF. And so let's address it now. Here's what I'm going to do. Make sure our table is selected. I'm going to right click anywhere in my table and I'm looking for table properties. This should only appear if you're in a table. So if you're looking for table properties, it's likely maybe your content isn't formatted properly. So we're going to select table properties and let's add that summary. So there's an alt text tab. And in here is where we're going to add a description. We're going to do lava types in the description. Now, at one point, the title attribute was important. I have spent my entire career being told not to put anything in the title, so I don't have an explanation for you as to why. So only the description there. And then I'm going to select the row tab. And here it seems our button is now activated. So this repeat header row at the top of each page, it now is active. And I can see that it's not grayed out anymore. So I'm going to go ahead and select it. This is going to eliminate an error when we create our PDF. Okay. So tables are the most complex typically. And it also gave us some fun stuff in here. I have a feeling we're going to be revisiting this. For now, let's move on. But I have a feeling we're going to be coming back here when I run the accessibility checker, but we'll have to wait and see. Okay, so next up, this looks like a new header to me, difference between Magma and Lava. This feels like a header too to me. Perhaps I'm wrong. It feels like a header too. And lo and behold, we have another table. So let's get some more practice in. I'm going to select my table and we're going to add a table header and a style. Under table design, I'm going to ensure header row is selected. I'm going to uncheck first column because I don't think this first column should be used as a header. It really would be more appropriate to apply that, if anywhere, on our first table, but that's okay. We'll leave banded rows on, and then let's choose our style. We can just choose any style from there. And then let's add our table summary. We are going to right-click, table properties. Let's leave this repeat as header row unchecked, just for keep it different. And then add our description. So this would be difference between Magma and Lava and select OK. We're just going to leave it as is for now and let's see what comes up in momentarily. All right, we're near the end here. Lava review. This feels like a heading too. it doesn't quite relate to our content above. And then finally, it looks like we have a list element. So I only know this because I've worked with this document. So today I learned the following things about lava. This is sort of a cue, right? And the lack of punctuation on the end tells me that this should probably be a list. So I'm going to select that text and I'm going to go to the paragraph section. And based on what you see here, do you think we should have a bulleted list or a numbered list? Jennifer says bullets. I would agree with you, Jennifer. 100 points. Mira Cameron, Riley, 100 points. Good job. I know, I just started giving out points. I don't know what happened. Okay, and that's basically it. So we talked about our list principles. We looked at our links, our images, our structure, which includes headings and list elements, and finally tables. So the final aspect of this is we are going to run the accessibility checker. Now, I've seen some presentations where they start there. I don't like starting there. I like saving it for the very, very end session. This is because it's automated. And I think it's important for you to understand those best practices before you get to, it telling you what's wrong. So we are now going to run the accessibility checker. Betsy, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. Just going back to the table with that format, I've had this issue myself, and I'm just wondering if you, it's just a question, if you just highlight the top row, like what would be the header row,
Yes.
and then do it. I'm just wondering if it interpreted as every row is going to be a header row. Maybe that's why it changed the formatting on you. I don't know what I'm saying there, but I've had that happen too.
Yeah, it's come up in pretty much every session I've done. Sometimes it does it, sometimes it doesn't. I'm honestly not sure. I feel like it's a slight bug. As far as I can tell, we still only have the header row set. But I anticipate when we run our accessibility check, it's going to flag me, and we'll see what happens there. So on one of them, we have it set, and then on the other one, we don't. So hopefully we'll be able to determine what that difference is. But yeah, good point. All right, here's how we run the accessibility checker. First things first, we're going to select File, Info, and under Inspect Document, we have Check Accessibility. Now there's another spot for it, and I'm going to show you that spot as well. So we did File, Info, Check for Issues under the Inspect Document area, Check Accessibility. Okay, now let's look at the other way. Under the Review tab, we have Check Accessibility. Voila, no accessibility issues found. So what this tells me is this repeat header row. I don't know what's happening. I'm not gonna lie to you. I have no idea. I think it's going to cause some issue when we export out to PDF. But just know it's really honestly designed for tables that flow onto multiple pages. So because we don't have that, it's really a moot point. I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the repeat header rows simply because it doesn't go onto multiple pages. Now, I didn't have any errors here. That's okay. Let's open really briefly. This is another document that definitely has errors, and I just kind of want to show you the difference. So when we do File, Info, Check for Issues, Check Accessibility, we have only 3 errors. Now, I know that this document is riddled with errors. Part of why I wanted to show you this was because the accessibility checker is manual. It doesn't check, or excuse me, it is automated. A manual check is still required. For example, we have no heading 1 in our document. That's technically a fail for multiple standards across accessibility. Alternate text, if we just view some of this, picture.jpg, that is an alternate text fail and a violation of Section 508 standards. There's lots of areas like that. which is why I don't rely on it. So I like to see at the end, no issues, woohoo. But based on this, right, there's only 3 errors in this document, and that is just not true. Jennifer asks, aren't the colors non-ideal? Which one are you talking about?
The last document, the table had like orange bars going across.
Oh yeah, so I didn't even talk about color contrast. So the color is fine, the orange is fine. Technically, where color contrast applies to documents, it's our text on our background. So if I pull up I'm hoping this won't crash anything. I have a tool called the Color Contrast Analyzer, which I can provide a link for you all. And it allows me to test our foreground and our background color. So the orange, let me say it this way. If we had white text on top of that orange, definitely a fail, definitely. However, in this specific example, the lines themselves really are not under that same scrutiny of color contrast. Whether it's ideal or not, you can make that judgment on yourself, but technically we're good. But let's test it out a little bit. So just for fun, let's take our foreground color. This is our font color, and let's make our font color white. And just for fun, we're going to take that orange as if it was our background. So I'm using this little eyedropper tool, and we can see example text down here in this window under sample preview, and it actually does fail. So you would be correct. However, because our background is white and our foreground is black, we're golden. Does that help answer your color, Jennifer?
Yes, thank you.
Cool. Okay.
Sean, I just want to add a comment to what Jenny's saying. I think in Blackboard Ally, is not perfect, and it's sometimes pointing out issues with color contrast but that aren't text, so it might point out something like the color of that line. So it's
Gotcha.
not a perfect tool. So I'm glad you said that. Thanks.
Yeah, I totally forget sometimes that schools have that. So yeah, Blackboard Ally might flag that, but here's the thing. So most automated checkers, they don't check color contrast because the computer just isn't smart enough to do it in all instances. Blackboard Ally is not bad. Canvas is okay at finding it, but really what they're queuing you for is like, hey, are you sure? So they just want you to manually check. In fact, when we go into PDF in a little while, that line in PDF, now I realize this isn't a PDF training, it forever stays needs manual check. There's a accessibility checker in there, and you can mark it as passed, but you open that document again, and you're going to see once again that you have to check manually. It's just one of those things that it's good best practice to look at. But yeah, you're totally right. Okay, so now it's your turn. What I'd like for you to do is pick a document, preferably a shorter one. I'd rather you work on the O3 volcanoes document. If you did it with me, by all means, pick a different one. And I'd like for you to apply the list principles to your document. So you can take any one of those sample documents. Do not do the flyer though, because we're going to do that one together next. So take either 00 volcanoes, our original one we did in session 1 or 2, or take this O3 volcanoes, or you can do the O2 creating accessible Word documents. And I'd like for you to take the next 15 minutes to 20 minutes to work on that. I'm going to go get a drink of water and I'll be back. And then together as a group, we will answer any final questions you may have about the list principles. Before I run off, does anyone have any questions?
I think Stephen has a question in the chat we can get to.
Table captions have a narrow restriction of text length. Yes. Yes.
In other words, I didn't even bother to put them in there because it did about half of it and said I'm done. So
yeah,
it's
yeah,
pointless.
I agree. Yeah, it's one of those things. The whole discussion earlier when I was like, it's a hot topic, is people say, and I've experienced this too, you can't actually activate the summary with the screen reader. However, any checker typically flags it for an error if it's not there. So in the wild, when I'm actually remediating documents, typically I'll just put the word summary, and it feels redundant. However, it gives me a green checkbox, you know. So there's a weird line between like, you know, getting your accessibility checks, which everyone wants, and then usability. So yeah, and I know several visually impaired people, you know, the summary is not a big thing typically. Anyways, so take the next 15, 20 minutes and work on one of those documents, and I promise I'll stop talking here. How is everyone doing? I assume we're all diligently working through these files. Oh, good timing, Stephen. Format of multiple paragraphs within bullets. Align without bullets. What do you mean?
In other words, in the 03 0 inaccessible volcano Long Valley, you have 2 paragraphs that belong to Long Valley.
What page is this on? Or do you want to share your screen?
Oh, sure. It's just one of those, I'm just trying to get the essence of what they're looking for.
Oh, gotcha.
Because we can't make it a single list, can we? Which we would normally do.
Are you talking where that there's
Where
like
it says-
another paragraph, magma right there?
Yeah, magma still feeds.
Yeah, I mean, so a part of this is sort of just making a choice on it. You can do that. You can leave it like that, or you can backspace it up to where it's a single paragraph. Or if you wanted to, I suppose you can make it a sub bullet of the bullet above it, technically.
Well, it's just that there was a point in the first one where we don't have lists that are a single item. So I'm trying to honor that.
Yeah, well, that's okay to do if it's a sub bullet. That's okay. To do. Yeah.
Okay, so sub list. I think that to me it looks better that way, but that's just me.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And just so you know, you're still screen sharing, so you'll want to end that.
Yeah, I'm on two screens, so I get lost.
I have that same problem. Stephen, you are correct. In fact, that orange across the board, that was on purpose. So good eye. I'm sorry, I muted you because I was hearing your clicking. Sorry about that. Nothing personal. Betsy, how are you doing? Good.
Good. I was actually going to type a question for fonts. We should just be sticking with sans serif fonts. Is that right? Or
yeah, there's like a rule of
matter?
thumb. Yeah. And also for font size, best practice is to do 12 and up. So while it's enticing, digital is interesting because you can zoom digitally, but my knowledge is best practice is to do 12. It's one of those like very, very minor details, you know, and most accessibility checkers don't check that anyways, font size. Screen reader users don't care because they can't, well, typically completely visually impaired person wouldn't care what size font it was because their technology would read it.
I've seen documents, you know, that were kind of helping people correct. Maybe they came from an OER source and the footnotes or something is 9. It's always 9. It's really small. So we will bring it up to 12, which then makes it like a page on its own usually. Is that like a recommended practice, or does it not really matter so much of the footnotes?
It's tricky. I would say do what you think is best. No one's probably going to come after you for the font size specifically, but it's hard. I feel like I would stick to my guns and say make it 12 point. I know it's annoying, but personally for me anymore, working in accessibility so long, the decorations and stuff don't matter to me anymore the way they used to. I'm like, it could be black and white and 5,000 pages, but if it's accessible, as far as I'm concerned, I've done my part, you know. And from what I personally gathered, students don't care what the stuff looks like, you know, so long as the content is there and they have what they need to succeed. Like, they don't care if it's 9 or 12. So why not make it 12? All right, we're going to take just 1 more minute here. And then we're going to start in on the fun stuff. Not that this all hasn't been so much fun, am I right? I'm even better in person. I get whole rooms going sometimes. So Carmelo asks, have you used Canva before? Any tips? I have. I love Canva. It's highly inaccessible in terms of the content you download. However, basically what you have to do is you have to go into Acrobat and make it accessible. And hopefully I'll kind of touch on some of that. I hope that eventually they add the possibility to download what we call a tagged PDF. The way everything's downloaded in Canva now, like if you create your design and you download your PDF, it's actually, it's just a flat image, which is unfortunate. Yeah, and we're going to talk about flyers a little bit. However, I'm going to teach you how to do it from Word. But I highly encourage you to look up resources on making accessible PDFs. And there are some tricks. Additionally, being a part of the community college system, you should be able to have access to this online tool called Equidocs. I'm trying to remember what email you would send to request a license. Now, Equidocs is an online PDF accessibility conversion tool, and it's essentially like dragging boxes around your content and you do OCR. So for me personally, I could do a page in a few minutes. If you were trying it for the first time, it's probably going to take you significantly longer, but you can do it. Let's see, can you download the PNG of the image from Canva and then create the flyer in Word? The only problem is we're still going to have that issue of it being an image-based content. So while we can put it in Word, the problem is that downloadable from Canva, it's an image. I suppose you could give good alt text, but it's a real fine line between having too much. Basically, one of the accessibility standards is to not include pictures of text. And certainly that applies to large volumes of text. Now, we are going to talk a little bit about flyers, but again, I'm gonna have to contain you guys to Word to PDF, but I'll try to give you a little bit that you can make your PDFs from Canva accessible also. So with that said, let's jump into it. So everyone, what we're going to do next is talk about, just briefly, creating accessible PDFs from Word. Before I do that, did anyone have any questions on the document you applied the list principles to? Or comments or concerns? And we'll just briefly address those. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm always cognizant someone might be typing. All right, I'm going to move on. So let's share my screen here. And we're going to pull up that O3 document we made accessible. So this bad boy is ready to rock. Let's create a PDF, shall we? So here's how we do that. I'm going to select the Acrobat tab. You do need this. If you do not see Acrobat tab at the top of your toolbar within Word, we will not be able to create an accessible PDF based on the formatting anyways. You do have to have Adobe Acrobat. Now, if you don't, you're welcome to just follow along visually. This is a little off script in terms of our regular presentation for Microsoft Word. It's okay if you don't see it, but this is how we would do it. We would select Acrobat and create PDF. Let's save this document. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And you might be thinking, Sean, I know there's other ways to create that PDF. You would be correct. However, they don't retain the accessibility markup that we applied. So I may lose some of you here. Bear with me, okay? This is not a PDF training. However, I'm going to talk about some rather complex things. So bear with me. So first things first, I'm going to view what's called our tags panel. So our tags panel, this is what is communicated to our assistive technology. If you are following along and you don't see this, you're going to go to view. Where is it? Tools. I lied. So it's under view, show hide, navigational, panes, tags. Again, you can just watch this if that's okay. Anyways, this information is what's communicated to assistive technology. This is what makes screen readers tick. This is the order in which a screen reader is going to read a document. It's all based on the tags panel, despite what you have heard. There are other menus, but we're gonna try to keep it simple here. Now, because this is a little off the cusp, I'm going to talk through this how I would if I was remediating it, okay? Now, first things first, we have what's called a section tag at the very top. I'm going to change this. I actually want it to be called document. So this is a section 508 best practice. Don't get hung up on it. I'm just going to do it because I'm here. I'm going to change this from SECT to document. Now, the way I did that was I pressed, this is going to get complicated, so bear with me. I pressed F2. F2 is rename shortcut, okay? If I also wanted to change it a different way, we could right click it, go to properties, and change our tag type. There's a bunch of different ones in here, but that's a biggie, okay? It's the document tag. Now from here, I can see that my Geology 2.3 retained its H1 status. That's fantastic. That means it went through correctly. And if I walk the tags tree, it's a common expression. I'm just using my arrow key on my keyboard to sort of walk through my document and see where we are. Now, if you're not seeing a pink box around your content, if you're following along, there's an option called highlight content. Again, this is not a PDF accessibility training. This is just to show you some examples. So we're just going to run through this. Now, something that's interesting to me is we have a little nested tag issue here. We have a figure inside of a paragraph tag. This is probably going to give us a fail. I'm trying to determine how far to go into this with all of you. I'm going to cut my figure tag out and just pull it out of that P tag. Hold on one second. Let me just review, make sure I don't go too far into this. Okay. Let's focus on some larger idea topics, right? We have a PDF. How do we make it accessible? First things first, you want to have all these tags in here. If you can walk through this and your content is highlighted, that is a really good place to start. Now, some of these areas where I did the hard return, it creates a blank paragraph tag. This will actually be read aloud. So I did that on purpose earlier just to create a mistake in the document. You can simply delete it on the keyboard and it will get rid of it. Now, there's certain elements to be aware of. For example, our list items. We can see that they came in under what we call an L tag, and we have multiple LIs. This is mandatory for accessibility best practices. And there's other instances like our table. A table consists of TRs, THs, and TDs. So we have a table, and in that we have rows. And in that, we have header cells and data cells, okay? This is how we can visually determine whether or not our table has headers. So this is pretty intense here. Let's review the accessibility. So all I did so far was change that to a document tag, right? I haven't really done anything in here. I'm going to select accessibility, and I'm going to select accessibility check. Now in here, we want to ensure all of our categories are selected, 32 of 32. And then we select start checking. This is great. I'm only seeing like one thing. It's fantastic. And that's under title. So if I right click fix, sometimes it will insert something in there. We can validate this by going to file properties under description. So it named it geology 2. Okay. And sometimes you just have to right click and fix it. But this is a result of all that hard work we did in Word. We have a decent tag tree. Is this completely compliant? I will say no, but we're like there. There's not a whole lot left to do. Push come to shove, a student using a screen reader could use this. Now you might be thinking, what do you mean? Like, why is this not fully accessible? There are lists of accessibility principles for PDF. And some of that includes adding proper metadata, which are things like the title, author, subject, and keywords. There are certain tricks like the document tag. And then honestly, like our list elements, if these were P tags, for example, it probably wouldn't flag it as an error. So it's one of those things where the accessibility checker picks up most of the items, but not all of it. So just for fun, I'm going to take a not so good document and I'm going to just show you what it looks like when it's not accessible. I'm sure you've probably seen this, but let's just walk through it anyways. So this document, I haven't applied any accessibility to. And just for fun, I'm going to review the tags panel. We kind of have a similar thing in here. We have our P tags, right? Even though these should be marked as headings. Just so you remember this, I'm going to change that to a document tag. Now let's run the accessibility checker just to see what we find in here. All right, we got a little bit more. So we have some figures that need alt text, and we have appropriate nesting, which means our headings are out of order or we skip a heading. That's what this error is for. Now I can come in here and fix these 4 issues in about 5 seconds. That does not mean my document is accessible, okay? It's actually really easy to make it past the checkers, which is why I don't rely on them. For example, this is a P tag, not a H1. So this is a trick that you can use when you bring a document in from Canva, okay? This is called the reading order tool. So from the top, let's pretend we have a document from Canva. I should have got a sample because that'd have been a good one to run through. That's okay, we're just gonna pretend. Let's close our tags tree for now. I'm gonna select my accessibility button and then select a reading order. Reading order tool, this is kind of like, I don't know, a paintbrush or something. And we're gonna paint these P tags a different format, okay? So I have my reading order tool open. This is currently set to a P tag and it needs to be a heading 1. There's a few ways we can do this. Now I could have done it in the tags panel, right? I showed you that method. We can right click properties or F2, type in H1, or we can use the reading order tool to draw a box. This selected every little character in there. If you see a pink box around all of your letters, you did it correctly. And once you do that, you can come over here and select heading 1. Now, PDF is inherently buggy. If this was our full-on training, I would warn you of that. For now, just take it at face value. I changed it here. Oh, there it went. So I was going to point out it still referenced P tag there. Sometimes that happens, but it did update. Luckily for them, I talk a lot, so it must have heard me and it changed. So creating accessible MS Word documents, I'm going to grab this bad boy here, click and drag. Sometimes it's a little finicky. You kind of have to go wide boxes. Sometimes it helps to zoom in. And we are going to make this a heading level 2. Looks like we have some L bodies here. Let's just see how that came through. Okay, so these list items are actually correct. That's fantastic. Document headings. This is a paragraph tag. This should be a heading level 3. So this method that I'm doing here takes significantly longer. Drawing the boxes, marking the content, or updating the tags tree. In our Volcano document, pretty much all of that is avoided. It just comes through already. So the more times that the more time you spend in Word, the better your results are going to be. Now, being realistic, when you come from Canva, you know, you're not going to have this luxury of the tag tree. You're going to see no tags. And I'm going to show you another method here. Jennifer, it is not okay. Those are numbered. So this document I brought in is not accessible. This is just to show you the reading order tool. But you're correct. It is wrong. Good eye. As far as I'm concerned, I've done my job because you found that. So that's good for me. Okay. So let's pretend there's no tags in here, right? And our reading order tool can't quite grab this stuff. Here's what we're going to do. We are going to use a tool called the Action Wizard. So what the Action Wizard does is it's going to take our PDF through a series of steps in order to make it accessible. Now, just like with any automated tool, especially in accessibility, it's not perfect. So let's just run it and I'll kind of explain what's happening. This is sort of, this is a good tip for beginners with PDF accessibility. It covers a lot of the bases. So I'm going to select Action Wizard. Then I'm going to select Make Accessible. Finally, I'm going to select Start. So if you're not used to this, it can be tricky, but it's all within this little menu box over here. When I select Start, it's going to bring up a series of boxes for me to walk through. So right now we've activated the wizard, and we need to add a title. And I like to add the other stuff, but I'm weird. You don't always have to. Depends on who's looking at what you're doing, I guess. I've worked with some schools that have more strict standards. Some have looser. Why not put them in? Then we select OK. Now what it's going to do, it's going to attempt to recognize all of the text and images on the document. Now, this is very important for that Canva question specifically. My document's already tagged. However, the action wizard doesn't care. It's still gonna run through it, but this step is crucial for Canva-based documents or image-based documents. Essentially what it's going to run is what we call optical character recognition, OCR. It's gonna pull the text out of the document. So let's select OK. And it's gonna run through every page here. Now, because this is a PDF I purposefully brought in, when we run this, it actually makes the accessibility worse. So it's really important to understand these concepts of when to do this versus when to have it in Word. This is not a form, so I'm going to skip this step. We have to set our reading language on the entire document. This is English. And now it's going to run through all the images and say, hey, these ones need alt text. I'm going to select OK. And apparently none of the figures are lacking alt text, but as we learned in the other area, it could be wrong alt text. So it's still good to spot check. Finally, it's going to run the accessibility check. So let's select start checking. Not bad. Not bad. So it looks like we have a heading out of order, but here's the thing. We can't rely on this. We have to go in the tags panel and verify. So we got a H1 and H2. Anyone see what's wrong here? It's grouping both of our headers under an H1. And it's marking this paragraph text as an H2. So there's a couple ways we can fix that. And I'm just going to do this once more. You can come in and grab that top line. We'll make it a H1. Now we'll come in here, grab this, make it an H2. And as you see, I'm getting trouble. So this isn't a PDF training, so I'm not going to dwell here. This happens, okay? It's very difficult. The first slide in our PDF accessibility training is imagine your happy space. Doesn't always work as it's supposed to. But I know ways around it. So just to win, I'm going to select this text, go over to my tags panel, create tag from selection. And it kind of, that's an alternate method. Now, none of you need to know all of this right now. Think about the make accessible action wizard. Think about the accessibility checker. But most importantly, if there's anything to take away from this PDF side, I want you to understand walking the tags tree. Ooh, look at that. Oh, this is a fun one. So it took number 2, number 4, this paragraph, and number 2, and put it into a list tag. That's not right. That's definitely not right. So while, again, we can make it past the accessibility checker, it obviously still has some issues. Okay. With all of that said, questions, comments, concerns, lay them on me. Yes, yes. Betsy said, this is why the CVC OEI recommends making any course documents into Canvas pages rather than PDFs whenever possible. I will second this. I was an OEI course reviewer for a very long time, since its inception. I'm no longer. And back then we would make them accessible, and it was just a nightmare. There were so many files. It is much easier to get that content out, create a Canvas page, and then apply your accessibility there. However, we're here, and now we're going to talk about pretending to do a flyer. So on my screen, I have an example of a flyer. Now, I know Canva, we talked about it. I love it too. And if that's your poison, then I highly encourage you to learn as much as you can about PDF accessibility to make it accessible, or try to figure out how to get that stuff into Word. So basically, I have an inaccessible inaccessible Word document here. I would want to come in and apply my accessibility. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to first create a new document. And this is strictly for this is like, I like to show what I would do in the wild of making content accessible. So I have a blank document and I have my other document. Sometimes it's tricky to work in an inaccessible document, and it's faster to just open up a blank one and kind of merge your content over. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this image. I'm going to Control C, come over to my Word document and paste it in. And we're going to change our formatting on here to do, I guess we could do behind text, and it's going to allow me to resize it. We're going to right click, edit alt text, mark as decorative. Okay. Now we have another image at the top, Coast Colleges. I'm going to copy, come over to my other document and paste. I, again, am actually going to do behind text. That formatting option allows me to sort of place it wherever I want. Now, best practice for accessibility typically is to do inline. However, this is going to be a flyer. So it's kind of like, think about your end goal. Do my best to center it there. And then I will put Coast College's logo. And then let's take some of this content and get it in here. I'm going to go ahead and just copy it all. And let's see how bad it comes through. I'm just going to do a clean copy paste. All right. So we're getting there. We now have most of our content on the page. And this green is just atrocious. It's hurting my face. So I'm going to change it to black. Bump that font up just a little bit. And center it. Now I had some extra spacing in here. So I'm going to delete that out. And actually, let's do right justification based on our image here. Remember, we are the artist here, so we can determine how this plays out. Basically, the end goal here is to have our built-in accessibility before we take it to PDF. Now, for font like this, it can get a little tricky. We can put in a return to get the font off of here, off of that image. Something like that. So I think it's a little better. It's not great. Let's be honest here. Change the margins. Oh, that's a good suggestion. Yes, you can change the margins. Layout, margins, narrow. That messed up my current document, but that's okay. Yes, you can change the margins. That really doesn't have any effect on the accessibility. And then once we apply our accessibility principles, we're going to make that a heading 1. We got our list elements. This is a printed link, so it's probably fine. We're going to take it into PDF. So I'm kind of jamming through this because I'm running out of time, but the goal would be to recreate in Word, take it to PDF, and then apply the accessibility, the remaining accessibility in Acrobat. And I'm just going to verify my tags panel. And we have a little something in here. So it's interesting. This image still came through despite being marked decorative. We would need to do some stuff using the reading order tool. And I know I'm flying through this. My apologies. You can mark content as background. And then we would just verify our tag structure by walking through it. Change this to document. And we're going to just walk through. Make sure our text is good. I'm deleting out my blank P tags. Oh, and here's a good example. So in my tags panel, I have several L items. It should all be under a single list item. So we need to move all of these. Now we can hold our control key, and I know I'm flying. Bear with me. We're getting that all under a single list tag. Deleting some more blank P tags. verifying that our link is correct. Looks pretty good. This could possibly be moved up under one p tag. And let's run our accessibility check. Bam. So that's how I would do it. It's not great, but you can see where you can practice applying that. Again, leaning back on Canva, you're going to rely heavily on the reading order tool. That's what you're going to do. You're going to click and drag, use this menu, and make sure all of your stuff is in a container. Okay. Mary Carmen asks, could the content be centered? Yeah, the only reason I did it that way was because my image was bleeding over and it was affecting my color contrast. So if I center it, we have some words here like get and how. Those, I know it just because I do this, but visually it fails color contrast. Jennifer says that's why. Yeah, okay, totally. Adjust the margins. Yeah, you can play with it. You're the artist. So my goal here is to just give you some tips on how to do it. But by all means, honestly, I hate that left justified image. Personally, I would probably delete it if it were me. But yeah, that's how I would do it. So Joanna had sent me an example publisher file that had a flyer in it, a realistic one. And there's no easy way to do this. Publisher has terrible accessibility built in. It's very unfortunate. If this was designed in InDesign, we could do something with it, but this is going to be very challenging to make accessible. The approach I would take if I was working with this in the wild, create a PDF and use that reading order tool. But because this is a table, it would be it'd probably take me half a day to make this 3-page document accessible. So I highly encourage you to do it in Word or InDesign. That would be the best approach. We have about 5 minutes left. My voice is getting hoarse. If there's any remaining questions, please let me know. How are you all feeling? Was this, I got real in the weeds there. I hope it wasn't too much.
No, it's good. Actually, Sean, so what a lot of people have been doing is, since we didn't have the full training on this, when they create flyers, we're asking that they send out text-only version. But I know that that's not optimal, right? I mean, we actually want to be making the flyers themselves.
Something I did when I was at Santa Monica College, they would do two. They would send out, we had a disability newsletter, and then in the same email, it would be an accessibility or accessible plain text version also that had the exact same stuff. Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate it. Oh, Stephen, that was primarily for, it kind of depends on where you're at. If you're teaching online in a Canvas course and you have like 100 attachments in there of PDFs, it's more efficient to make them into Canvas pages than to do the accessibility of PDF. Everyone's different though. You know, if you find it easier to do the latter, then so be it. Or yeah.
Well, among other things, you can't really export a Canvas page.
Yeah, it's tricky. If someone was wanting to print the page, they're going to have issues, but it's sort of, you have to pick one, you know, or at least that's the consensus. Thank you, Riley. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate all of your time. I hope I didn't talk you to death. This stuff is a lot of information to get out.
Thank you, Sean. We
Thank you.
really enjoyed having you these last 3 weeks. And then just so everyone knows, it's taken me a little bit to get these things captioned, but I have been captioning them and sending out messages. So I'll email everybody who's participated. In about a week, I'll have this one done, and you'll have all 3 links so you can review them as well. So thank you, Sean.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.